I bought that fat thing for $1. Mountain man rescues. Obese bride from slave auction. They tied her wrists so tightly, the rope burned her skin, then shoved her onto the wooden auction block like she was nothing more than freight. The winter sun of Redemption Creek did nothing to warm Emma Whitlow's trembling body as the townsfolk gathered, whispering, laughing, pointing. Around her neck hung a crude wooden sign carved with one brutal sentence, $1, clearance stock. Her father stood proudly at the front of the crowd as if he were selling a mule instead of his own daughter. "Come on now," Harrison Whitlow shouted. "Somebody take this fat thing off my hands. She eats more than a horse and works less than one." The crowd roared with laughter. A group of boys tossed pebbles at her feet. "She ain't worth $1, one hollered. "My pa says she's cursed. Look at her. She broke the chair at the saloon last week." Emma stared at the frozen ground, refusing to let more tears fall. She had cried herself dry during the last 3 days of being displayed in the square like a farm animal. Her cheeks were raw, her lips cracked, but she kept her spine straight. If she let herself collapse, they would enjoy it too much. A woman pinched her own nose dramatically. "Lord have mercy, Harrison. Even if you paid me, I wouldn't drag that thing home." Emma's mother stood far behind them, eyes lowered, pretending not to know her daughter, pretending the shame wasn't hers to carry. Just when the crowd's laughter reached its height, a deep voice cut through the noise like an axe splitting wood. "I'll take her." Silence dropped over the square. Heads turned. Even the horses seemed to still. A giant of a man strode forward through the crowd. Nearly 6'5", wrapped in worn dark leather, shoulders broad as a barn beam. His beard was thick, his hair long, his jaw set in stone. The townsfolk whispered his name like a warning, James McAllister, the mountain man who rarely came down from the hills. The widower the town gossip swore had gone mad after losing his wife. The man they said was half wolf, half shadow. Beside him stood a little girl with bright blue eyes and tangled blonde hair. She clutched his coat with small fingers. "Daddy," the girl whispered, staring straight at Emma. "That's her. That's Mama." James's gaze locked onto Emma, really locked, and for the first time in months she felt seen rather than assessed, not appraised like livestock, not mocked, not reduced. Seen. He pulled a single silver dollar from his pocket, placed it on the auction table, and said with finality, "She's mine now." The ride out of Redemption Creek was silent, except for the creaking wagon and the soft crunch of snow beneath the horses' hooves. Emma kept her gaze lowered, hands folded tightly in her lap. She could still hear the townsfolk jeering in her ears. Fat thing. Useless girl. Clearance stock. James McAllister didn't speak. He kept his eyes fixed on the narrow trail leading into the pines, his expression unreadable beneath his beard. Every now and then, Emma glimpsed the little girl, Sarah, watching her with an unsettling, hopeful brightness. At last, Emma gathered enough courage to whisper, Why did you buy me?" James didn't look at her. His voice was flat. "Sarah needs her mother." Emma flinched as though struck. I'm not. "I know you're not Mary," he cut in, tone colder than the wind. "But the girl believes you are. It keeps her sane, and I need someone to play along." The truth hit her like falling timber. She wasn't wanted. She wasn't valued. She was a placeholder, an actress shoved into the role of a dead woman. "So I'm to pretend to be your wife," Emma murmured, her voice trembling, "for the sake of the child." For the sake of survival, James corrected. We live far into the mountains. Winter here kills the weak. A household needs hands. And Sarah won't make it through another season believing she's alone. Emma clasped her skirt tightly until her knuckles whitened. She had imagined, foolishly, that maybe James saw something in her, some worth the others didn't. But no, she was a tool in his grief, nothing more. "Do you intend for me to share your bed?" she asked quietly. "No." The answer was instant, clipped. "Mary's room will remain untouched. You'll sleep in the spare room beside Sarah's." Relief washed over her, followed quickly by something like shame for feeling relieved at all. When they reached the cabin, the smell of pine and hearth smoke greeted them. The structure was large, sturdily built, with a porch that wrapped around the front. A real home, warm, lived in, cared for. Sarah jumped off the wagon before it even stopped, racing inside. "Mama! Mama's home!" she shouted joyfully. Emma's heart cracked. She stepped slowly onto the porch, following James inside. The cabin glowed with soft light from the fireplace. Antlers decorated the walls. Quilts hung over chairs, and shelves of books lined one corner. Everything spoke of a life built with love, not the chaos or cruelty she'd known. "This way," James said, walking toward the back. He opened the door to a small room with a narrow bed and a chest for clothes. It was simple, clean, warm. "You'll stay here," he said. "Keep out of my room unless Sarah is present, and do not try to replace Mary." His voice dropped to a gravelly whisper. "I buried her once. I won't bury her again." Emma bowed her head. "I understand, Mr. McAllister." He flinched at the formality, brows tightening. "James is fine." "James," she corrected softly. He hesitated at the doorway, looking like he wanted to say something more, but instead he left with a grunt. Emma sank onto the bed. The room felt too big, too quiet, too foreign. Her chest ached. Why had she hoped for something else, something gentler, something hers? Moments later, tiny footsteps pattered down the hall. Sarah peeked into the room, holding a small wooden toy horse. "Mama?" Emma's breath hitched. "Sweetheart, I'm not—" But the little girl rushed in, throwing her arms around Emma's waist. "I missed you. I told Daddy you'd come back." Emma froze, then slowly, gently, wrapped her arms around the child. Sarah's hair smelled like wood smoke and wildflowers. Her small body trembled as she clung tightly, as though Emma were her last anchor in the world. Emma swallowed hard. I missed you too," she whispered, because in that moment, lying felt kinder than truth. Sarah pulled back, smiling up at her. "Daddy says you'll tuck me in every night and braid my hair in the mornings and read me stories." Emma nodded, tears blurring her vision. "Yes, sweetheart, I'll do all of that." Sarah beamed and ran out again. Emma pressed a hand to her chest. She had been bought for $1. She had been mocked and thrown away. But here, in this quiet mountain cabin, with a grieving child who already loved her, she felt, for the first time in her life, like she might matter to someone, even if the man of the house insisted otherwise. The first weeks in the mountains passed in muted stillness, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the distant cry of wolves. Emma learned quickly to move around the cabin like she was walking through someone else's memory. She cooked meals Sarah liked. She swept floors James never commented on. She kept her voice soft, her presence small, her steps gentle, as though she feared she might crack the fragile illusion holding the household together. James barely spoke to her, With Sarah present, he placed a steady hand on Emma's back, guided her gently to a seat, introduced her as your mama. His tone was warm, practiced, tender for the child's sake. But when Sarah ran outside, when her small footsteps faded, his hand dropped away and his eyes cooled like river ice. "You don't have to pretend when she's not here," Emma whispered once. James didn't meet her eyes. "The pretending is for her, not for us." And so the days continued. Emma, the ghost of a dead wife. James, the widower, who refused to let the living take up space in the shadow of the dead. But Sarah was sunshine in a house full of ghosts. "Mama, braid my hair? Mama, can you read another story? Mama, look, I made you a drawing." Emma gave the girl everything she had ever wanted to give a child: gentleness, patience, warmth. She loved Sarah quickly, deeply, helplessly, and she tried, truly tried, to stay away from James's heart. But sometimes she caught him watching her when he thought she didn't notice. A flicker of something, not quite anger, not quite sorrow, something that looked like longing. She always looked away first. Then came the storm. One icy November afternoon, James left before dawn to track a wounded elk. Dark clouds gathered quickly. By evening, the wind howled so loudly the cabin walls shook. Snow hurled itself sideways across the clearing. Sarah pressed her face against the frosted window pane. "Daddy should be home." "He will be," Emma said, though her voice betrayed her fear. "Your father knows these mountains." But night fell. Hours passed. The fire dimmed. The wind grew merciless, and James did not return. Sarah began to cry quietly, curling into Emma's lap. Emma held her close, heart pounding. She couldn't sit still, couldn't breathe properly, couldn't accept the thought of loss. Not again. When the clock struck midnight, Emma rose, wrapping Sarah in blankets. "Where are we going?" Sarah whispered. "We're bringing your father home." The storm swallowed them the moment they stepped outside. Emma clutched the lantern with one hand and held Sarah against her chest with the other, pushing forward into the wall of snow. Each step sank to her knees. Wind burned her skin. Her lungs felt torn open. "James!" she shouted into the white void. "James!" No answer. They searched for nearly an hour. Emma's legs trembled. Cold bit through her boots. Just when her strength began to fail, a shape appeared in the distance, a dark mound half buried in snow at the base of a pine. "Daddy!" Sarah screamed. Emma stumbled forward, falling to her knees beside the motionless figure. James lay collapsed in the snow, his right shoulder torn open, blood frozen black against his coat. "Oh, God!" Emma whispered, pressing fingers to his neck. "A pulse. Faint. But there. He's alive. Sarah, he's alive." The little girl sobbed into Emma's skirt. It took everything Emma had to get him home. She dragged him by the shoulders inch by inch, snow blinding her, breath ragged. Twice she fell. Twice she forced herself back up. She didn't let go, not once. When they finally reached the cabin, she pushed the door open with her hip, collapsed inside with James's body half on top of her. She had no time to breathe. She built the fire higher, boiled water, sterilized cloth, tore open his coat. The wound was vicious. A bear's claws, deep and jagged, the same beast that haunted his past, she would learn later. "Stay with us," Emma whispered as she worked, binding his shoulder with strips of linen. "Please, please, stay with us." Sarah knelt beside the bed, clutching her father's hand. "Daddy, wake up! Mama found you! You're safe!" At dawn, James stirred. His eyelashes fluttered, his breath rasped. Emma nearly collapsed with relief. When his gaze finally focused, he looked at her as though he had never seen her before. "Mary?" he whispered. Emma's voice cracked. "No, James, it's me. It's Emma." His brow furrowed. Pain filled his eyes, not physical pain, but the pain of waking into a world where Mary was still dead. "You came for me?" Emma nodded, tears dripping onto his chest. "I wasn't going to lose you." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Something in him broke softly, silently, not like the shattering of glass, but the thawing of ice. James slept for nearly a full day after the storm, drifting in and out of fever. Each time he stirred, Emma was there. She wiped his forehead with cool cloths, spooned broth between his lips, and checked his bandages with a gentleness that seemed almost impossible for hands that had known only labor and punishment all her life. Sarah never left his side either, except for moments when exhaustion overtook her and she collapsed against Emma's shoulder. Emma would carry the child to bed, tuck her in, then return to James. By the second night, his fever broke. "You should rest," Emma whispered when his eyes cracked open again. James swallowed hard, gaze lingering on her face longer than he intended. "You saved me?" Emma shook her head. "Any decent person would have done the same." "No," James rasped. "Not like you did. Not through a storm like that. You should have stayed inside. You should have kept Sarah safe." "I did keep her safe. By bringing her father home." A pause. His jaw worked as if he wanted to say more, but the words tangled somewhere deep inside. Then, unexpectedly, he whispered, "I saw her." Emma stilled. "Who?" "Mary." Emma's breath caught in her chest. "She was standing in the snow," James murmured, voice distant, dreamlike, "just ahead of me, calling my name, telling me to come home." His eyes closed. "When I fell, I thought she'd come for me." Emma's hands tightened around the damp cloth. "James, that wasn't Mary." He opened his eyes again, slowly, painfully, and looked at her. "I know," he whispered. "It was you." The air shifted between them, heavy with something raw and unspoken. Emma swallowed, unsure what to do with the ache in her chest. "You should sleep," she whispered, breaking the moment gently before it broke them. James slipped under again, but his fever dreams did not stay quiet. Near dawn he began to murmur, voice thick with emotion, words tumbling from the ruins of old memories. "Mary, don't leave. Not again. Stay, stay with me. I failed you. I failed our child." Emma froze, her heart clenching at the pain threaded through every syllable. She had never known love, real love, not the kind that left a man shattered for years, not the kind that carved its initials into bone. She touched his hand lightly. "You didn't fail them, James." His eyes snapped open, but he wasn't looking at Mary anymore. He was looking at her. Emma's breath hitched. They were close, too close. The firelight traced the tired lines of his face, the curve of his mouth, the haunted depth of his eyes. She had seen many men angry, many men cruel. She had never seen a man grieving so fiercely it became a second skin. "You shouldn't have heard that," James said hoarsely. "I'm glad I did." His brow furrowed. "Why?" Emma hesitated, then spoke the truth she'd tried to bury. "Because it makes you human, not a legend, not a monster, just a man who loved deeply and lost deeply." He exhaled shakily. "I didn't ask to be saved." "No, but you needed to be." James stared at her for a long moment, silent, motionless. Then he pushed himself upright with a grunt ignoring the pain in his bandaged shoulder. Emma moved forward instinctively, but he raised a hand. "Don't fuss over me," he muttered. "I'm not a child." "You're acting like one," she countered softly. His eyes snapped to hers. Emma's heart thudded, but she didn't back down. Not this time. "You can pretend you don't feel anything," she continued. "You can hide behind Mary's memory forever, but I know what I saw out there in the snow. You didn't call for her." Her voice quivered. "You called for me." Silence. Heavy. Electric. James looked away first. "Mary was the only woman I ever loved," he said stiffly. Emma closed her eyes. The words cut deep, but she didn't crumble. She had been broken before. She had survived worse. "I'm not asking you to forget her." James's head jerked up. "I'm not trying to replace her. I never have. Sarah saw something that wasn't true, and I went along because—" She swallowed. "Because loving that child felt like something I was meant to do, even if this house didn't belong to me." She held his gaze. "But I won't apologize for caring about you." James stared, stunned silent. Emma rose from her chair. "Rest. I'll make breakfast." She turned to go, but his fingers wrapped around her wrist, surprisingly gentle, surprisingly warm. "Emma." His voice was low, roughened by vulnerability he didn't yet know how to wield. "Don't walk away." She froze. "I don't know what this is," he said, searching her face as though reading a language he'd forgotten. "But I know you gave me back something I thought was gone forever. Hope, a chance to keep going." His hand tightened slightly. "Don't leave, not tonight, not tomorrow." Emma's breath trembled. "I won't," she whispered. James released her slowly, as if afraid she might disappear. That morning, Emma cooked while James sat by the fire, watching her the way a starving man watches bread rise, guilty, grateful, afraid. Sarah barreled into the room moments later, tackling Emma's legs with a shriek of joy. "Mama, Daddy's awake. Daddy's okay. You saved him." Emma laughed shakily, hugging the girl tight. James watched them, mother and child in everything but name, and something tender, terrified and wondrous flickered through his eyes. Mary's ghost no longer filled the cabin the way she once had. There was someone else here now, someone alive, someone warm, someone who dragged him out of a storm because she refused to lose him. Whether he was ready or not, James McAllister's heart had begun to thaw. Winter settled deeper into the mountains, but the cabin grew warmer by the day, not because of the fire, but because James, slowly, reluctantly, began to live again. He spoke more. He sat at the table instead of eating alone on the porch. He asked Emma questions, small ones at first, then bigger ones. "Do you like the mountains? Did your father always treat you that way? What did you dream of becoming before life got cruel?" Emma answered honestly, sometimes painfully, sometimes shyly, sometimes with laughter she didn't know she still owned. James listened, and each time he did, something in him softened. But peace in the frontier never lasted long. It began with a knock, a hard, sharp, arrogant knock that didn't belong in the quiet wilderness. Sarah froze in place, clutching her doll. James's expression darkened. Emma's breath caught. No one visited the McAllister cabin. No one dared. James stood slowly. "Stay with Sarah," he murmured to Emma. She nodded, pulling the girl close as James opened the door. Wind rushed in. Snow swirled, and a man stepped inside without waiting for permission. Harrison Whitlow, Emma's father, the same man who'd sold her for a single coin, the same man who mocked her, humiliated her, spat on her existence. He looked almost identical, slicked back hair, suit slightly too clean for the frontier, eyes sharp and greedy. Only now his pride was covered with a thin layer of desperation. "Where is she?" Harrison demanded. "Where is my daughter?" Emma's heart plummeted. Sarah buried her face against Emma's hip. James didn't move. "State your business." "My business is my blood," Harrison snapped. "I've come to reclaim what's mine." James's voice dropped dangerously low. "She is not an object." "She belongs to me until she's married," Harrison shot back. "And she isn't married. That means she's under my authority. According to law, I can take her back or sell her again if I damn well please." Emma shook her head, trembling. "No, no, I won't go back. I won't." James's fists clenched. Harrison turned toward her with a smile so false it made her stomach turn. "Emma, my dear girl, I've come to forgive you." She almost laughed. "Forgive her? For what? For existing?" "I need you home," Harrison continued. "Your mother's sick. The farm is struggling. There's a man in Silver Falls willing to marry you, older but wealthy. He'll pay generously." His grin widened. "Your bride price might even save the farm." Emma felt sick. Sarah whimpered. "Mama?" Harrison scoffed. "Mama? She's no mother. She's—" James stepped in front of Harrison so quickly the floorboards groaned. "Choose your next words carefully," Harrison sneered. "What do you care? You bought her. You don't even hide it. $1. His voice rose. "One." James didn't strike him. He didn't have to. The way he stood, immovable, seething, cold as the winter, made Harrison retreat a half step. "You're not taking her," James said. "Then I'll fetch the sheriff," Harrison hissed. "You're keeping a woman unlawfully. You forced her into your home. You pretended she's your wife. I could have you jailed." James's nostrils flared. "You sold her. You tied your own daughter to an auction block. You have no rights." "A father always has rights." Emma broke then, not with tears, but with a voice that finally refused to tremble. "Not any more." Harrison turned. Emma stepped forward, placing Sarah behind her. "I am not your livestock. I am not your burden, and I am not your property. I'm a grown woman, and I choose where I live." "You don't get to choose?" Harrison growled. James's hand curled around Emma's arm, protective, grounding. "She just did." Harrison's eyes darted between them, fury twisting his face. "This isn't over." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard snow fell from the rafters. Silence swallowed the cabin. Emma's breath hitched. "He's going to bring the sheriff." "Yes," James said. "Will they take me?" James turned to her fully then, his hand lifting to cup her cheek with surprising gentleness. Emma leaned into it without thinking, hunger for tenderness overwhelming her caution. "No one," James said quietly, "is taking you from this cabin, not while I draw breath." Emma sucked in a shaky breath. Sarah peeked from behind her skirts. "Mama, is he gone?" Emma kneeled, hugging the girl tight. "Yes, sweetheart, he's gone." James watched them, mother and child, bound not by blood but by something stronger, and something inside him shifted, something final. "We'll need to go into town tomorrow," James said softly. "To speak with the preacher." Emma blinked. "Why?" "So your father can't claim you again." Her heart thudded hard. "James, do you mean—" He stepped closer, closer still, so close she could feel his breath warm her forehead. "I mean," he whispered, "that Sarah deserves a mother, and I deserve a home that isn't haunted by the past. And you," he swallowed, voice scraping raw, "you deserve a life where no one ever calls you a thing again." Emma's throat tightened painfully. But only, James added, searching her eyes, if you want that life with me. Her knees nearly gave out. I do, she whispered. I do want that. I want all of it. James exhaled slowly, like a man who'd been holding his breath for years. Tomorrow they would face the town. Tomorrow they would confront the sheriff. Tomorrow they would fight for the right to choose each other. But tonight, Emma slept in peace for the first time in her life. Morning rose sharp and cold over the mountains, streaking pale gold across the snow. The world looked peaceful, but Emma felt anything but calm. Her pulse beat loud in her ears as she laced her boots, as she tucked Sarah's scarf tighter, as she watched James saddle the horse with quiet determination. He didn't speak much. He never did. But the set of his jaw, the steadiness of his hands, the occasional glance toward her, they told her everything. He wasn't going into town to ask permission. He was going to claim the life he had chosen, and he was ready to fight for it. Come here, James said softly as she stepped out onto the porch. He lifted her chin with a single knuckle. Stay close to me in town, no matter what happens. Emma nodded. I will. Sarah reached up, tugging James's coat. Do I have to come too? James crouched, brushing a curl behind her ear. Yes, sweetheart. Today's important. We do it together. The girl nodded solemnly. They rode into Redemption Creek just as the sheriff was sweeping the front of his office. Sheriff Amos Tate, lean, tired-eyed, forever with a toothpick in his mouth. A man who didn't like trouble but hated injustice even more. As soon as he saw Emma, his face fell. Oh, hell. Harrison came by this morning, said you kidnapped his daughter. Emma's stomach lurched. James stepped forward. She wasn't kidnapped? The sheriff eyed James, then glanced at the mountain of muscle that was James McAllister, and carefully put his broom aside. Let's all stay calm. Harrison appeared from the saloon as if summoned, hair slicked, coat too fine for a man so rotten inside. He pointed dramatically at Emma. There she is. Sheriff, arrest that mountain brute. He stole my daughter. James didn't even flinch. She walked away. She belongs to me, Harrison shouted, voice cracking with self-righteous fury. She belongs to no one, Emma finally erupted. Her voice sliced the air clean in half. She stepped forward, hands shaking but chin high. I'm not your property. I never was. Harrison sneered. The law says, the law, Sheriff Tate interrupted, doesn't consider women property, not anymore. Harrison's face purpled. She was sold. I have witnesses. She was abandoned, James growled, and I paid because no one else stepped in. That's because no sane man wants her, Harrison snapped. James moved so fast the sheriff barely got between them. Say that again, James whispered, voice low and dangerous. Harrison stepped back, trembling at the look in the mountain man's eyes. Sheriff Tate raised both hands. Enough! I'm the law here. No threats. He turned to Emma. Do you want to go with him? No, Emma said immediately. Never. And do you feel safe with James? Emma's breath caught. She looked at James, at the man who protected her, who tried so hard not to feel, who now stood waiting for her answer like his whole world depended on it. Yes, she whispered, I feel safe with him. The sheriff nodded. Then she stays where she wants. Harrison lunged. You can't do that. She owes me. She owes you nothing, Tate snapped. And if you try to take her by force, you'll spend the winter in a cell. For the first time, Harrison realized he had lost. But he had one more poisonous arrow to shoot. You think McAllister wants you? He hissed at Emma. He's using you, pretending you're his dead wife to comfort that brat of his. Emma flinched as if struck. James stepped in front of her before she could speak. Don't talk to her again. Harrison spat on the ground. This isn't over. Oh, it is, the sheriff said sharply. Leave the territory by sundown. Harrison stormed off, defeated and humiliated. The square went quiet. People watched from windows and porches. Snowflakes drifted lazily as if the world itself had exhaled. Emma's hands trembled. James took them gently in his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. I would never use you, he said. Never. Her eyes stung. But I'm not Mary. No, he whispered, tracing her cheek with the back of his fingers. You're Emma, and that's who I want. Sarah ran into Emma's arms. Mama, are you staying with us forever? Emma kissed her forehead. Yes, sweet girl, forever. James looked at Emma, and in the middle of the quiet square, with snow falling and onlookers holding their breath, he spoke one sentence that changed everything. Let's get married today. The ride back to the cabin felt different this time. Not like a retreat, not like the fearful return from battle, but like a beginning. Cold air stung their cheeks, but Emma felt warmth blooming through her chest, steady and impossible to shake. She was not being taken back. She was going home. James dismounted first, then lifted Sarah down before turning toward Emma. He didn't offer his hand the way a gentleman might. Instead, he placed both palms firmly around her waist, lowered her gently, and let them linger a moment longer than necessary. Are you sure? He asked quietly. No hesitation in his tone, just respect, a promise that her choice mattered. Emma nodded, breath trembling. Yes. Inside the cabin, the fire still glowed softly from the morning's embers. James added wood, coaxing flames higher, then turned to face Emma. Not as the man who had bought her, not as the widower who once pretended she was someone else, but as a man standing bare and uncertain before the woman he wanted. We don't need a big ceremony, he said. Just the preacher, a few words, and a promise I'll spend the rest of my life keeping. Emma swallowed hard. I never thought anyone would want to marry me. James stepped closer. Then you've been lied to your whole life. She let out a shaky breath. Sarah climbed into Emma's lap, arms wrapping tightly around her neck. Mama, are you really going to stay forever? Daddy said forever. Emma kissed the girl's hair. Yes, sweetheart, forever. James watched them, something fierce and tender flickering through him. He knelt in front of them both, the fire lighting his scars, softening every harsh line. Emma, he said, I can't promise the world. I can't promise easy days or seasons without storms. But I can promise you'll never stand alone again. Not in this house. Not in this life. Emma's vision blurred. James. He reached for her hands, large and rough and warm around hers. This cabin is yours if you want it. This family is yours. I am yours, if you'll have me. Emma pressed a trembling hand to his cheek. I choose you. James leaned into her touch, eyes closing briefly behind the weight of emotion he'd carried for years. Then tomorrow morning I'll bring the preacher up the mountain, and by noon, he opened his eyes. You'll be my wife in name, not just in obligation. Emma nodded, unable to speak. And in that quiet moment, no audience, no vows, no rings, something deeper than a ceremony passed between them, a recognition, a claiming. The fire crackled softly. Snow drifted outside. Sarah curled against Emma's side. James sat close enough that their shoulders brushed, lightly, deliberately. "You're safe here," he murmured. Emma exhaled a shaky breath, leaning her head against him. "I know." Outside, the mountains stood silent and watchful. Inside, warmth wrapped around them like a promise. The world might not accept them. The town might gossip. Harrison might return with more venom. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, the cabin was full of light, full of hope, full of a love just beginning to bloom. Stories like this remind us how love often grows in the unlikeliest places, between two broken souls, in a mountain cabin far from the world's judgment, in moments when kindness becomes salvation. Every comment you leave, every place you're listening from, it all becomes part of this journey we're sharing together. So tell me, where in the world are you hearing this story? And if you still believe love can find people who've been overlooked, hurt, or forgotten, then stay close. The next story is already waiting for you, and it just might be the one your heart has been needing. "You'll carry my child," mountain man's daughter tells fat woman, father rescued from wolves. "Move, girl, you're weighing the whole rig down." The old driver's shout cracked through the frozen air as the small stagecoach lurched along the narrow mountain road. Cordelia Cora Ashford clung to the side rail, her gloved fingers numb, her body thrown from side to side with every rut in the snow. She had heard words like that her whole life. Too heavy, too much, too inconvenient. Tonight, for the first time, it sounded like a death sentence. Snow fell in thick wind-whipped sheets, blinding the horses. The wheels groaned and slipped in the ruts. Above them, the pines bent under the weight of ice. Below, the road dropped away into black, bottomless ravines. And behind came the howling. At first it was only a faint rising note, lost in the roar of the wind. Then it grew, rolling over the drifts, sharp and hungry. A chorus of wolves, too many to count, voices weaving together into one terrible sound that raised the hair on the back of Cora's neck. "They're gaining on us," she cried, peering out the frosted window. "Sit down and don't scream," Silas snapped from the driver's seat. "If they're hungry, they'll go for the horses first. Maybe they'll be too busy to bother with you." Cora sank back onto the bench, her heart hammering. She was 26, with soft cheeks and a thick, sturdy figure that no dressmaker could ever quite disguise. In Chicago, her father had called her a good-hearted girl in the wrong body. Society had been less kind. She'd endured whispered jokes at balls, pitying looks in parlors, and the quiet decision that she would never be the bride, only the helpful cousin, the spinster aunt of the future. So when a letter had come, offering work as a live-in governess at a remote Wyoming ranch, Cora had grabbed at it like a lifeline. Fresh air, honest work, children who might not care what she weighed, a chance to build a life that was hers. She had not imagined the price of that chance might be her blood on the snow. The coach jolted violently. One of the horses screamed. The wolves' howls were close now, no longer distant, echoing off the rock walls. Cora risked another glance out and saw them, gray shapes streaking through the storm, eyes shining, tongues lolling. 10 at least, maybe more. They moved with terrifying purpose, born to this wild, brutal night in a way she never could be. Silas lashed the team harder. "Come on, come on!" A wolf sprang forward, snapping at a horse's flank. The gelding panicked, bolting sideways. The stage swerved. The world spun. Cora's stomach lurched as the right wheel hit a hidden rock buried under the snow. The coach flipped. She flew. Cold and pain hit her in the same instant. She crashed into a snowbank, rolled, and came to rest on her back, the breath driven from her lungs. Somewhere to her right, she heard wood splinter, metal shriek, and the sickening thud of the overturned rig. The howls were closer. Cora forced herself up onto her elbows. The driver lay twisted in the snow, neck at an impossible angle, eyes staring at a sky he could no longer see. One of the horses kicked weakly, then went still. The wolves circled. They moved in a loose ring around her, paws silent on the snow, heads low, shoulders rippling under thick winter fur. Steam curled from their jaws. Their eyes were not cruel, only hungry. Cora's heart hammered against her ribs loud enough, she thought wildly, for them to hear. She tried to stand. Her left leg collapsed under her, sending a lance of fire through her thigh. She bit back a scream and dug her fingers into the crusted snow, dragging herself backward a few inches at a time. "This can't be it," she whispered, her voice ragged. "Not here, not alone." One wolf stepped forward, teeth bared. Another joined it. The circle tightened. "Please," Cora choked, though she had no idea who she was begging. "Please, someone." The leading wolf gathered itself to spring. A rifle cracked, shattering the night. The wolf dropped, its body crumpling into the snow not 10 feet from her. Another shot followed, then another, each one precise, clean. 2 more wolves fell before the rest even understood the danger. The survivors whirled, snarling toward the tree line. From the darkness between the pines, 2 figures stepped into the spill of moonlight breaking through the storm. A massive, broad-shouldered man with a rifle held steady in his hands, and at his side a tall, slim girl with the same deadly calm in her eyes. Their barrels stayed trained on the wolves. "Get behind me!" The mountain man's voice cut through the wind, deep and unshakable. "You're not dying out here tonight." If you were Cora in this moment, lying in the snow with wolves closing in, where in the world would you be listening from right now? And would you trust the stranger with the gun? The wolves scattered into the trees, their howls fading into the storm. Cora lay trembling as the 2 figures approached. First the girl, her breath steaming in the frozen air, then the man who moved with the deliberate steadiness of someone who feared nothing nature could throw at him. He slung the rifle across his back, scanning their surroundings once more before kneeling beside Cora. "You're bleeding," he said. His voice was rough, shaped by years of speaking only when necessary. "Where does it hurt?" Cora opened her mouth, but her teeth chattered too hard for words to form. She could only point to her leg. The young woman, 18 or so, with long brown hair stiff with snowflakes, crouched beside them. Her eyes were a startling blue, the same shade as the man's. "A wolf bit her, Pa. We need to get her inside before the frost sets into the wound." He nodded once. "Name's Jeremiah Ironwood," he said without looking up. "This is my daughter Lily." Cora tried to speak, but all that came out was a strained whisper. "Cora, my name is Cora. You can tell us the rest later." Jeremiah slid one arm behind her shoulders, the other beneath her knees. His touch was firm, surprisingly gentle. "Hold on." She barely had time to gasp before he lifted her clean off the snow. She wasn't small. She knew that. Most men strained just to help her up a stair. This mountain man lifted her as if she weighed no more than a sack of feathers. The shock of it made her cheeks burn, part shame, part something else she couldn't name. Lily jogged ahead, breaking a path through the drifts. "Cabin's close," she shouted over the wind. "A quarter mile, maybe less." Cora pressed her face into Jeremiah's shoulder to shield herself from the cold. His coat smelled of wood smoke and pine, wild, raw, comforting in a way she didn't expect. Each step he made shook through her body, but he never faltered, never slowed, even as the storm thickened around them. "You're safe now," Lily called back, glancing over her shoulder with a reassuring grin. "We've got you." Cora wanted to believe her. When the outline of the cabin finally emerged through the blowing snow, Cora's breath caught. The structure wasn't large, but it was built solidly, logs fitted tight, smoke curling from a stone chimney. A warm glow flickered behind the frosted windows, a promise of life in the dead of winter. Lily pushed the door open, and Jeremiah carried Cora inside. Heat slammed into her, a wall of blessed warmth from the roaring hearth. The scent of burning spruce, cooked meat, and something floral she couldn't place filled the room. Jeremiah lowered her onto a thick fur spread across a wooden bench near the fire. "Lily," he said, shrugging off his snow-cloaked coat, "boil water and bring the salve." "Yes, Pa." Lily hurried into the adjoining room, her boots thudding softly on the floorboards. Jeremiah knelt beside Cora again and began cutting through the shredded fabric of her skirt to reach the wound. "Wolves are clever," he muttered. "Go for the leg first if the throat's too far." Cora shuddered. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to trouble." Jeremiah looked up sharply. His blue eyes were striking, fierce, and unexpectedly offended. "You getting attacked by wolves isn't a trouble," he said. "It's bad luck, and bad luck isn't something a person apologizes for." Cora blinked. She wasn't used to a man like him. Back in Chicago, every inconvenience she caused, even if not her fault, was her responsibility, her shame. Lily returned with a steaming basin and a jar of thick green salve. She knelt on Cora's other side. "This will sting," she warned softly. It did. The moment Lily pressed the hot cloth against Cora's torn leg, pain shot up her thigh, sharp and electric. Cora clenched her teeth, fists tightening in the fur beneath her. "Good," Jeremiah murmured. "Means the limb's still alive." Lily worked quickly, cleaning the bite marks with practiced motions. When she finished, Jeremiah took the salve, scooped a generous amount, and spread it carefully over the injury. His hands were large, calloused, but astonishingly gentle. "You'll need rest," he said, "and bandage changes every morning." Cora managed to nod. Her pulse was still racing, but not from fear anymore. From something else, something unsettling, something safe. Lily tugged a blanket from a chair and wrapped it around Cora's shoulders. "You can stay here," she said with a warm smile, "as long as you need." Jeremiah rose to his full height, towering above them. "You'll sleep by the fire tonight. Wolves won't come near the cabin, and neither will anything else." His voice carried the quiet certainty of a promise already sealed. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, Cora felt, for the first time since Chicago, like she might actually live to see morning. By morning, the storm had swallowed the mountains whole, leaving only silence and deep, unbroken drifts. Cora woke to the soft crackle of the fire and the gentle weight of a blanket tucked around her shoulders. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the scent of spruce smoke and stew simmering somewhere in the cabin reminded her. She tried to sit up. Pain flared through her leg, not unbearable, but sharp enough that she winced. The movement drew attention. "You're awake." Lily appeared from the kitchen, carrying a wooden bowl filled with steaming porridge. Her cheeks were rosy from cooking, her eyes bright in the firelight. How, how long did I sleep? Cora asked. Almost 12 hours. You needed it. Lily set the bowl in Cora's hands. Eat slowly. It's warm. Cora did as told. The porridge was simple. Oats, a little honey, maybe dried berries. But after the terror of the night before, it tasted like heaven. Lily watched her with open satisfaction. I told Pa you'd be hungry, she said. He didn't believe me. Where is he? Cora asked, trying not to sound too curious. Lily pointed toward the front door, out checking the snares and making sure the wolves didn't circle back. Cora's spoon paused midair. He went out alone? Lily shrugged as if it were nothing. Pa's been hunting these mountains since before I could walk. Wolves don't scare him. Nothing does. Cora wasn't so sure. Something scared him. She could see it in the way his eyes went distant whenever Lily looked away. There was a heaviness in him, deep-rooted and silent, the way old trees carried lightning scars no one talked about. Lily reached for the bandages. Let me look at your leg before he comes back. He pretends he's not worried, but he is. Cora blinked. He worries? Oh, yes. Pa worries about everything he cares about, Lily said lightly. He's just terrible at showing it. Cora wasn't sure what to make of that. Lily knelt beside her, unwinding the blanket and rolling up the hem of Cora's torn skirt. The bite marks were red, swollen, but clean. When Lily touched the salve, Cora sucked in a breath. Sorry, Lily murmured, but it's healing. That's good. As Lily worked, she spoke softly. Pa's not used to having strangers here, or people, really. It's been just the two of us since I was 8. Cora swallowed. I'm sorry. That must have been very hard. It was. Lily's voice gentled. But he did everything he could, and he never let me feel alone. Cora opened her mouth to reply, but the cabin door swung open. Jeremiah stepped inside, stomping snow from his boots. His coat was thick with frost, his beard dusted white. He looked like part of the mountain itself, immovable, solid, shaped by the cold. His eyes fell on Cora immediately, sharp and assessing. You're awake, he said. She nodded. Yes, thank you, for everything. He grunted, neither accepting nor rejecting the gratitude. Lily rose, dusting her hands. Her leg's improving? Jeremiah crouched beside Cora without asking permission. Let me see. He peeled the bandage back. His fingers brushed her skin, lightly, carefully. The touch sent a strange warmth spiraling through her chest. He frowned, not in disapproval, but concentration. Inflammation's down. Good. Cora found herself watching him, his rough hands, the furrow in his brow, the way he exhaled slowly as though releasing tension he didn't want anyone to notice. You should rest the whole day, he said, rewrapping the bandage. You stand on it too soon. It'll tear again. Yes, Jem, she said quietly, trying to mimic the way Lily had addressed him. His eyes jerked up, startled. Lily hid a grin. Jeremiah cleared his throat. Mr. Ironwood is fine. Pa likes when people use his name, Lily said sweetly. Jeremiah shot his daughter a look. Lily? What? She said innocently. Cora tried not to smile, but failed. Jeremiah stood abruptly, as if the warmth between them made him uncomfortable. I need to cut wood, he muttered, heading for the door. Pa, breakfast, Lily called. I'll eat later. The door shut behind him. Lily sighed in exaggerated exasperation. He's impossible. Cora hesitated. Is he upset that I'm here? Lily's eyes widened. No, Cora, he's not upset at all. He's overwhelmed. Pa isn't used to soft voices in this house, or strangers thanking him, or what? Lily studied her for a moment, then said softly, or a woman he can't ignore. Cora's heart stumbled. I'm not, she swallowed. I'm not someone men notice. Lily's expression softened. Not in Chicago. Maybe not around people who don't know what strength looks like. But here, out here, Pa sees more than you think. Cora felt heat rising in her cheeks, too confusing to name. Lily leaned close. Give him time. He's like the snow, cold at first but softer than you'd expect once the sun hits. Before Cora could answer, the door opened again. This time, Jeremiah carried an armload of split logs. He dropped them by the hearth, wiped snow from his brow, and glanced, just briefly, at Cora. Not cold, not distant. More like an instinct he didn't yet understand pulling him toward her. He turned away quickly, but not before she saw something crack in that winter-hard gaze, something that looked a little like fear and a little like hope. The storm held the mountains hostage for a full week. Wind battered the cabin so fiercely that even the logs moaned, and snow piled high against the windows until daylight vanished behind a wall of white. But inside, the fire burned bright, and a strange new rhythm settled over the three of them. Cora soon learned that Lily rose before dawn every morning, her footsteps light as snowfall as she stirred the embers back to life. Jeremiah, on the other hand, slept lightly, too lightly. Some nights, Cora woke to the soft creak of the floorboards as he paced in the dark, pausing at the window as if searching for threats no one else could see. The cabin, once intimidating, slowly revealed its warmth, the smell of pine logs, the steady hiss of boiling water, the low hum of Jeremiah's voice when he spoke to his daughter in the mornings. Even the silence felt comforting, like a blanket laid gently over her shoulders. Cora recovered faster than she expected. By the end of the week, she could walk with a limp. By the second week, she could carry light things from one room to another. And that was when Lily began her lessons. Cora, Lily said brightly one morning, can you help Pa sharpen his hunting knives? I would, but my hands are chapped. Jeremiah, who had been sorting gear at the table, stiffened. Lily, or maybe she can help you with the wood pile, Lily continued cheerfully, ignoring him. Or the traps. Yes, show her the traps. I don't have time to teach. Pa, Lily said, widening her eyes in that way only daughters know how. She wants to learn. Cora didn't know whether she wanted to learn or simply wanted to stay useful, but the eagerness in Lily's face made her nod. If it's not too much trouble. Jeremiah looked at Cora, really looked at her, and something unreadable flickered behind his eyes. He set down his tools. Fine, he said quietly. Come with me. He led her outside into the sharp morning air. Snow still blanketed the ground, but the worst of the storm had passed. Sunlight made the world glitter like millions of broken diamonds scattered across the earth. Jeremiah handed her a small hatchet first. Show me how you hold it, he said. Cora tried. Her grip was awkward, her stance unsure. Jeremiah didn't sigh or scoff or roll his eyes. He simply stepped behind her, placing his hands over hers, his chest a warm presence at her back. No, he murmured, not like that. Here. He adjusted her hands, her wrists, her elbows. His fingers were rough but gentle, guiding without forcing. Cora's breath caught somewhere between her ribs. Lift from the shoulder, he said, not the elbow. Your strength's here. She could feel his breath at her ear, the warmth of him, the steadiness. She swung. The blade bit cleanly into the log. Good, he said softly. She tried again and again. Each time his voice followed, quiet corrections, murmured approval. She had never been taught anything like this. In Chicago, people turned away from her, certain she would fail before she ever tried. Here, this improbable man expected her to succeed, and under his guidance, she did. When they finished, Cora leaned on the hatchet handle, her breath white in the morning air. Jeremiah gathered the split logs, glancing at her sidelong. "You learn quick," he said. Cora smiled shyly. "Only because you're patient." He snorted softly. "No one's called me that before." "I have," she thought, but didn't say. Back inside, Lily was stirring a pot of stew. The moment she saw them together, Jeremiah carrying the wood, Cora dusted with snow, cheeks flushed from exertion, her grin was unmistakable. "See?" she whispered to Cora later as they chopped vegetables together. "He likes you." Cora shook her head. "No, Lily, he's just being kind." "Pa isn't kind, not like that, not with strangers. He looks at you differently." Cora felt heat rise to her cheeks. "You're imagining things." "Am I?" Lily's smile turned sly. "He asked me to make extra bread tonight. He never asks for more bread." Cora tried not to smile, tried and failed. That evening Jeremiah came in with a fresh kill slung over his shoulder, a young deer. He laid it on the table and lost himself in the quiet, precise work of skinning and dressing it. Cora watched, fascinated by the ease with which he moved, the competence in every cut. He didn't boast or brag. He simply worked the way a man survived the world. When dinner was served, Jeremiah took the smallest portion, pushing the bowl with the most venison toward Cora. "You need strength," he said when she hesitated. "Eat." Lily shot Cora a triumphant look. After the meal, Jeremiah surprised her again. "You used to sew," he said. "Didn't you?" Cora blinked. Yes, a little." He handed her a heavy winter coat, beautiful but torn at the sleeve. "Can you mend this?" She ran her fingers over the thick fabric. "I'll do my best." "You always do," he muttered, almost too quietly to hear. When Lily went to bed, Cora remained by the fire with her sewing kit. Jeremiah tended the flames, then sat down across from her. The room was silent for a long time, filled only with the soft scratch of thread and the gentle pop of burning logs. "You're fitting in," Jeremiah said at last, eyes fixed on the fire. Cora looked up, startled. "Am I?" He nodded. "Lily laughs more. The cabin feels different." He didn't finish the sentence. Cora did it for him in her heart. Warmer, softer, better. Jem cleared his throat, suddenly uneasy. "You should know. This place isn't safe, not always. The mountains take things. Weather, animals, men, they can be cruel." He paused. "But if you stay, I'll keep you safe." Cora's breath caught. He wasn't promising comfort or romance or a future. He was offering protection, shelter, his word. His word, she sensed, was unbreakable. She nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in her chest. When she finally went to sleep that night, the cabin no longer felt like a stranger's home. It felt, impossibly, like the first place she had ever belonged. Spring thaw came slowly to the mountains. Snow retreated in patches, revealing dark earth and stubborn green shoots pushing their way toward sunlight. With it came noise, birds returning, rivers swelling, branches cracking under melting ice. The world outside the cabin seemed to awaken all at once. Inside, something else was awakening too. Cora no longer limped. She moved through the cabin with ease, keeping the space warm, clean, bright. Lily followed her like a shadow, asking questions, laughing, humming little tunes Cora had taught her. And Jeremiah, he watched. Not openly, never openly, but he watched. When Cora kneaded dough at the table, he paused in the doorway longer than necessary. When she helped Lily pluck a brace of grouse, he lingered near the hearth, listening to their chatter. And when she smiled, just a small, soft curve of lips, his jaw tightened, as if he didn't understand why the sight made something shift inside him. But it wasn't until the day the letter arrived that the cracks truly began. Jeremiah was splitting logs near the creek when he spotted a shape on the horizon. A rider, alone, moving at an unfriendly pace. He cursed under his breath and signaled Lily, who grabbed her revolver and darted behind him. Only when the rider came close did Jeremiah relax a fraction. It was the mail runner, an old man who passed through the valley once every few months, carrying letters and news from distant towns. Jeremiah took the single envelope handed to him, paid the man in dried meat, and watched him disappear down the trail. Back inside the cabin, he set the envelope on the table. His fingers hovered over it too long. "Pa?" Lily asked. "Who's it from?" He didn't answer. Cora, drying her hands from washing berries, approached carefully. "Is everything all right?" He hesitated, then slid the envelope toward her. "It's for you." "For me?" Jeremiah nodded. "Ashford. That's your family name." Cora froze. She hadn't heard her last name spoken since the night of the wolf attack. Her hands trembled as she opened the letter. Jeremiah stepped back, giving her space. Lily hovered at her shoulder, protective and curious. The letter was short, sharp, a blade wrapped in polite words. "Cordelia, where are you? You missed your appointment. The family is embarrassed. You must return immediately. We have already arranged another position for you. Do not make trouble. You owe us this much. Mother." Cora folded the letter with shaking fingers. Jeremiah watched her closely. "Family looking for you?" Cora laughed once bitterly. "If you can call them that." She sat slowly, the weight of old shame pulling her down. Lily touched her arm. "Cora, what did they say?" "They want me back, not because they're worried, not because they care, but because they're embarrassed I disappeared." Her voice cracked. "I was never anything more than a burden to them." Jeremiah's jaw flexed. "You don't owe them anything." Cora's eyes filled. "They think I do." "Do you want to go back?" he asked. She looked at him then, really looked at him, at the man who had carried her bleeding through the snow, who had taught her to split wood with his hands over hers, who watched her with a quiet yearning he didn't understand. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "No, I never want to go back." Lily exhaled in relief. "Then don't." But Jeremiah didn't look relieved. If anything, he looked troubled. "Your family might come searching," he said. "If they do, I won't turn you over, but you need to know things could get dangerous." Cora nodded. "I understand." Lily's eyes sharpened. "Let them come. Pa can handle anyone." Jeremiah frowned. "It's not that simple, Lily." "It is," Lily insisted. "We're a family now." Cora's breath hitched. Family. The word felt too big, too warm. Jeremiah looked at Lily with a warning glare, but Lily only lifted her chin stubbornly. "You know it's true, Pa," she said. "You know she belongs with us." Jeremiah's gaze snapped to Cora, raw and unguarded for one terrifying second. "She can stay," he said quietly, "as long as she wants." Cora's heart twisted painfully. "Thank you," she whispered. But Lily wasn't finished, not by a long shot. Later that evening, after Jeremiah went outside to store firewood, Lily seized her chance. She pulled Cora toward the bedroom, shutting the door behind them. "You love him," Lily said plainly. Cora's face flushed. "Lily, and he loves you? He just doesn't know what to do with it. He thinks he's too broken." Cora swallowed, her voice trembling. "I don't want to make him feel trapped or pressured." Lily took her hands. "Pa hasn't smiled, really smiled, since Mama died. But he smiles when you're here, not with his mouth, with his eyes." Cora's throat tightened. "I don't know if he wants more." Lily took a deep breath. "Then let me tell you something. Pa told me once, after Mama died, he never wanted to love anyone again because he was afraid they'd be taken from him." Cora blinked away tears. "Lily? But then you came," Lily said softly, "and he came back to life." Cora covered her mouth to keep from crying aloud. Lily squeezed her hands. "And that's why you can't leave, and why you shouldn't hold back. Pa needs someone who sees him, someone who won't run, someone strong." Cora shook her head. "I'm not strong. You survived wolves. You survived a family who didn't love you. You're the strongest person I know." Cora's breath shuddered. "You really want me here?" "With all my heart." The door creaked then. Jeremiah filled the doorway, snow still dusting his shoulders. "What's going on?" he asked, confused by their tear-streaked faces. Lily didn't hesitate. "Pa," she said boldly, "I want Cora to stay with us, not just for the spring, not just for the year. I want her to be part of our family." Jeremiah froze. Cora's heart nearly burst out of her chest. Lily pressed on. "I want her here forever." Jeremiah looked at his daughter, then at Cora. His voice dropped. "That's not a decision I get to make for her." "She already made it," Lily said. "She doesn't want to go back." Silence thickened between them. Cora lifted her chin, voice trembling but certain. "I want to stay." Jeremiah inhaled sharply, as if the words hit too deep. Before he could respond, the sound of hoofbeats cracked through the valley. He spun toward the window, eyes darkening. "Riders," he said, "coming fast." Lily grabbed her pistol. Cora felt the world tilt. The letter had not come alone. The hoofbeats thundered closer, shaking loose flecks of dust from the rafters. Jeremiah moved first, his instincts sharper than the changing wind outside. He crossed the cabin in 3 strides, lifted his rifle from the mantel, and positioned himself near the window. Lily stood beside him, pistol drawn, jaw clenched in a familiar, inherited defiance. Cora remained near the table, frozen between fear and the fierce, impossible desire to protect the home she had grown to love. Jeremiah glanced at her once, just once, and his voice was low, steady, but edged with something she had never heard from him before. "Stay behind me, Cora." This time she didn't obey. She stepped forward. "I won't hide," she whispered. Jeremiah's eyes hardened, not with anger, but with something closer to dread. He opened his mouth to argue, but the riders arrived before he could speak. 3 men, all armed, all dressed in heavy coats marked with the insignia of the Cheyenne Wells Deputy Office. One dismounted, tying his horse to the post. The other 2 positioned themselves behind him like wolves forming a semicircle around prey. The leader was thick around the middle, with a red beard and eyes that darted with the caution of a man who trusted no one. He rapped his knuckles on the cabin door. "Jeremiah Ironwood, we know you're in there." Jeremiah didn't open the door. "State your business." "We're looking for a woman," the deputy said. "Cordelia Ashford. Her family reported her missing. We're here to bring her home." Cora flinched. Lily shifted closer to her without taking her eyes off the door. Jeremiah's grip on the rifle tightened. "She ain't missing. She's with us." The deputy made a humorless sound. "A woman don't belong with a man like you. Her people want her back. They say she's unstable, trouble-prone." Cora's breath caught. Lily swore under her breath. Jeremiah's voice dropped to something cold and lethal. Even through the door, the men could surely feel the air shift. "Cora is safe here. She's not leaving unless she chooses to." The deputy snorted. "We got papers saying she belongs to her mother." "People don't belong to people," Jeremiah snapped. "And your papers mean nothing to me." A pause. Not long. Just long enough for the deputy to decide he didn't like how this conversation was going. "Open the damn door, Ironwood," the man barked, "or we'll come in ourselves." Jeremiah moved toward the latch. Cora grabbed his arm. "Don't," she whispered. "He'll twist everything. He'll drag me out." Jeremiah looked down at her, and something fierce and wild flashed in his eyes. A vow without words. Then he opened the door anyway, not wide, just enough to stand framed in the doorway, massive and immovable, blocking the view into the cabin with his body alone. "You got no right to take her," Jeremiah said. "She's not property." "She's a runaway," the deputy spat. "Her mother says she's incapable of making her own decisions, says she's slow-minded, vulnerable." Cora's stomach dropped. Jeremiah straightened, shoulders rolling back like a mountain rising from the earth. "She's smarter than any man standing on my land right now." One of the deputies sneered. "She's fat, Ironwood. That's all she is." The next moment happened so fast Cora barely saw it. Jeremiah stepped forward. The deputy stumbled backward, boots sinking into the mud under the sheer force of Jeremiah's presence. "You don't speak about her that way," Jeremiah growled. The red-bearded man recovered quickly. "Easy, Ironwood. We're just doing our job." "No," Jeremiah said. "Your job ended the moment you stepped onto my land threatening someone under my protection." The deputy's hand twitched near his revolver. Lily cocked hers behind Jeremiah's shoulder. "We won't ask again," the leader said. "Bring her out, now." Cora knew this was the moment she had always feared, when a stronger force would drag her back to a life she never wanted, when she would lose the family she had just found. But something inside her shifted. She stepped forward, placing her hand on Jeremiah's arm. "I'm not going anywhere," she said, voice trembling but certain, "and I am not afraid of you." The deputy's eyes widened. Jeremiah looked down at her, but not with fear, with pride, with awe, with something dangerously close to love. "If you try to take her," Jeremiah said, turning back to the men, "then I reckon you won't leave this mountain alive." Lily lifted her pistol higher. "Try us." For a long, terrible moment, no one moved. Then the deputy spat into the snow. "This ain't finished," he snarled. "We'll be back with more men." They mounted up and rode off, disappearing into the thinning trees. Jeremiah closed the door. Lily holstered her pistol. Cora let out a breath she'd been holding for months. "But Jeremiah—" He didn't speak. He simply pulled Cora into his chest, one hand cupping the back of her head, holding her as if he'd nearly lost her. And for the first time, she felt him tremble. Night fell quickly in the mountains, swallowing the last traces of daylight before any of them were ready. The cabin glowed with a soft amber light, its single window casting a warm square onto the snow outside. Inside, the air felt thick with everything that had happened: fear, anger, relief, and something gentler blooming beneath all of it. Cora sat at the wooden table, hands wrapped around a cup of warm tea Lily had made. Her fingers still trembled. She tried to steady them, but her body remembered the confrontation even if her mind tried to forget it. Lily settled beside her, leaning her elbows on the table. "They won't dare come back tonight," she said, voice sure but eyes worried. "Boss scares the spine out of most men." Cora managed a small smile. "He scared me the first week." "Me too," Lily whispered, grinning. "Still does sometimes." Cora's smile faded as her gaze drifted toward the closed bedroom door. "He almost got himself shot because of me." "No," Lily corrected softly. "He stood up because of you." The distinction hit Cora's chest like a slow, warm weight. She lowered her eyes. "Lily, I've never had anyone defend me, not once in my entire life." "That's not true," Lily said. "You defended yourself today. You stepped forward. You didn't let that man define you." Cora laughed, but it broke halfway through. "My legs were shaking." "So were his," Lily replied. Before Cora could respond, the bedroom door opened. Jeremiah walked out slowly, as though he had been pacing inside, trying and failing to settle the storm inside him. He had taken off his coat, leaving only the linen shirt stretched across his broad frame. His hair was still damp with melted snow. His jaw was tense, his eyes unreadable. Lily stood. "I'm going to check the snares before bed. You two talk." Cora blinked. "Lily?" But the girl was already grabbing her coat and slipping outside, shutting the door behind her with a soft thud. Cora and Jeremiah stared at each other across the cabin. The fire crackled. The wind brushed snow against the windows. Silence wrapped around them until Jeremiah finally stepped closer. "You scared me," he said. Cora's breath caught. She had expected anger, not this. "I thought they'd take you," he continued, "and I couldn't let that happen." She looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jim, why?" He swallowed hard, as if fighting words that wanted to stay buried. His hands flexed at his sides, unsure where to rest. "You belong here," he said finally. "With us. With me." Her heart slammed against her ribs. "Because I help around the house? Because I take care of Lily?" "No." His voice was quiet. "Because you've become part of this place, part of my life, and losing you." He shook his head. "I can't face that." Cora felt tears sting her eyes. She stood slowly, stepping closer until they were only inches apart. "I don't want to leave," she whispered. "I meant that." Jeremiah exhaled shakily. Then he lifted his hand, hesitant, almost afraid, and brushed a loose curl from her cheek. Cora froze at the tenderness of the gesture, at the way his fingers trembled as though he was touching something precious. "You're safe here," he murmured. "As long as I'm alive, no one will take you." The promise hung between them, heavy, real, undeniable. Cora closed her eyes and leaned into his touch. "Jim," she whispered, voice breaking, "come back to me tomorrow morning. Please, I want to talk more, to know what we are." Jeremiah's hand lingered against her cheek. "If you'll have it," he said. "Tomorrow won't change a thing. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." A soft knock sounded at the door, Lily returning, but the promise had already settled into the air like falling snow. Stories like this aren't only about wolves in the dark or the echo of gunfire on a frozen night. They're about every person who's ever felt unwanted, overlooked, or too afraid to believe they matter, until someone finally saw them fully and fiercely. If you're listening right now, wherever you are in the world, thank you for walking beside Cora, Jeremiah, and Lily through fear, hope, and the fragile beginning of something that might become love. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? Your voices remind me that across miles and mountains, stories still connect us. If you still believe love can grow from broken places, stay close. The next story is already on its way to you.